my God. How perfect is my hair today? I mean, it's always good, but today, I think it's incredible. So I know the real reason you're watching this is to just stare at me on mute and do whatever you do while watching these videos. But instead of just staring straight at the camera, I'm going to answer a couple questions for today's Strong Talk Q&A. I had a couple questions like how to overcome genetics, and how to deal with doubts leading into a contest, and the mental approach. And it's all kind of the same question, and it's all kind of coming from the same place, and that's from fear. And fear's okay, and it's actually something you can use. You can use to your advantage. I was constantly scared before a contest, and that's one of the things that drove me. Is I was scared I'm gonna fail, and by having that fear and using that as a motivator, like, well, I'm really scared I'm gonna fail, so I'm gonna go out and I'm not gonna skip that day, or I'm not gonna skip that set, and to keep working to improve, because I didn't want to fail, because that thought was in my head. But the problem is that if you're thinking of all these sort of excuses like, well, I don't think I have the best genetics, so I don't think I'm going to do that, then by saying that, you don't, and you will fail. So mindset is extremely important. You have to be self-confident. And another thing is, you have to remember this as a hobby. I've been talking to my good friend John Alderson. I was actually just texting him, and he said that training's fun again. It's not his life. It's a hobby. It's something I do because I enjoy it. So you have to remember to do that. So if you're constantly worried about, oh, I'm short, or I got small hands, or my toes are weird, or whatever fucking thing you're worried about, you're not worried. Then you're worried about all these things that are going to hold you back from getting better. You're not focusing on what you need to do to get better. And the same thing, like, someone's asking me, did I ever worry about, like, there's some competitor that's some person that there's no way I'm going to be able to beat them at a contest or something. Like, again, you're worrying about something that you have zero control over. You need to focus on what you can actually control yourself. And this is your own training, your own diet, your own performance. If you don't know, by looking on social media, going on Facebook, and looking at 15-second Instagram videos, and you see someone and you're like, oh my God, that person's this, or they're jacked, or they're, you don't know what's going through their head. Chances are they have all the same kind of doubts you do, and you don't see the whole story. You're seeing the highlights of their lifting. You're seeing the pictures they take at the best angle, where they look their best. You're seeing every time they PR. And who knows if they're even telling the truth. I hate to break it to you, but a lot of people lie about the weights they lift, especially in strongman, where there's no way to know how heavy a keg is, or someone can say a log's 180 pounds empty when it's really 90, or who fucking knows. Like, there's what I've found is, like, the people that I thought were gonna be the best, judging by their training videos and their social media, almost never were at contests. And it'd be some guy that didn't look like much would show up and kick ass, and I'd be like, who the fuck is he? He's the guy who won. So, and I've had talks with numerous athletes as well, that they were even worried that they'd go to a show like Nationals and they thought, oh, well, I can't do this event or that, and they end up winning it. It's the weirdest thing, but you can't have those kind of self-doubts, and by always focusing on all these things like, oh, well, I don't have access to a log, or my farmer's walk is at this height, and the one at the contest is going to be at this height, and oh, well, they just changed the event, and now it's 50 pounds heavier, it's 20 pounds lighter, or they powder coated the handles, or I wonder if it's this or that. Like, you're worrying about all of these things that you just can't control. You need to prepare yourself as good as you can with whatever tools you have around you and whatever resources you have, and get as strong as you can and as proficient in the movements as you can with whatever you have available, so that when you go, you're as prepared as you possibly can be to put on as good of a performance as you possibly can. And the more time you spend worrying about all these different things, the less time you're spending focusing on the things you actually can improve upon. Oh, and one of the, I'll give, instead of just rambling, I'll try to give one set actual piece of advice, which you can probably use, other than you just staring at me for the past, how long's it been? 6 or 7 minutes. Is when you go to a contest, and if you spend all your time, seeing how many reps that person did, how many, what time they got on the farmer's walk, etc., is you're not focusing on what's your next event and how to do it, and that's when mistakes happen. And when mistakes happen is when you lose points and you lose placing and you don't end up winning the contest. A lot of the time at something like nationals, where there's there's going to be 20, 30, maybe 60 competitors or more in your class, depending on what class you're in, is the top third of that group are all, they all have their individual strengths and weaknesses, but they're all right about the same level for the most part, and most can win on the on the any day. But who ends up winning is the one who makes the least amount of mistakes. And so a good way to approach it is, the only thing you should be thinking about is the event right in front of you. Like, if you have a log press coming up, you need to think about how many reps you're going to do, your technique, what your cadence, how you're going to breathe at each point during the lift. On your yoke walk, you're going to think all the little cues you use to have a successful yoke run. And let's say something doesn't go right. You stumble, you take too fast of strides on the yoke, you drop it, you repick it, it cost you five spots because you wasted 2 seconds. That's how close things can be at nationals. If you do that, it's done. You get pissed off. I always tell people, I'm like, alright, be pissed off for 5 minutes, then think, what's next? So, now if you have Atlas stones coming up, that's all you're going to focus on anymore. That yoke's done. Ain't nothing you can do about it. You fucked up. You went shit. You can get pissed about that and look at and think about how to improve it next week. Not when you're still on a competition day. You don't think about all the shots you missed, in a sport. If we played real sports, I'd actually know what that means. I think I just heard it said somewhere before. But so you do that, and you also don't think about that one event you have coming up. I've heard people have come up and oh, you won the first 2 events. They're like, yeah, those are my good events, and then I have stones later, so I'll probably fall back after that. The fuck are you gonna say that for? That's a horrible way to think. You're just setting yourself up for failure. Don't focus on that event that you're worried about that might be your current weakness, when you have 3 events before it. Focus on what's right in front of you and focus on what you can control, and don't make excuses. Just just go out and work hard and have fun. Hit subscribe, all that stuff. See y'all next week.